I never imagined my life would spiral into chaos so quickly. Just a week ago, I was a devoted husband, blissfully unaware. Now I'm a man betrayed, driven by a burning desire for vengeance. My beautiful wife, Rebecca, deceived me with my own brother, Max. The pain of their betrayal was unbearable, but their arrogance led to their downfall. I caught them red-handed, their lies unraveling before my eyes. I was humiliated, but now I'm determined. This isn't just about betrayal, it's about reclaiming my life, and I will stop at nothing to make them pay. Here I sit in a small office at a job site just north of Calhoun, Georgia. I'm thinking about my marriage. You might wonder why I'm here instead of with my family, who are all in Melbourne Beach, Florida, for a winter holiday. Let me catch you up. My name is Jimmy Foreman. My dad is James Everett Foreman. I've been married to my beautiful wife, Rebecca, for 7 years. We have 2 kids, James, who is 6, and Elizabeth, who is 4. I have an older brother named Max. He's a lawyer and my mom's favorite. If you saw us, you wouldn't believe we're related. Max is 6'4", which is 6 inches taller than me. He is also very fit with full, dark, wavy hair, unlike my short, sandy brown hair. Even our eyes are different. It almost seems like we have different dads. Growing up, Max was the star. He could do no wrong in my mom's eyes. I played baseball and football in high school, too, and I was a good pitcher. Some scouts noticed me, but I wasn't tall enough for them. That's life, I guess. Mom always praised Max, often by putting me down. It hurt, but Dad tried to make up for it by spending more time with me. He was proud of both of us, but I got more of his attention. Maybe that's why I ended up working with him, and together we made a lot of money. After Emery Fortson, the project leader, left the trailer, I took out a legal pad and a pen from my briefcase. I also set up my laptop and connected to the internet. I like writing things down on paper. It helps me think. I made a list of things I noticed since I came down from Atlanta on Wednesday. Most of it was about body language, but where there's smoke, there's fire. The worst part was when my son, James, said that Max had been at the resort before my parents got there. "Uncle Max, you had that at the club on Friday night," James said when Max ordered a shrimp platter. This dropped like a bombshell. Everyone stopped talking and looked at me. At that moment, I felt like saying, "We have a problem." My mom broke the awkward silence by asking, "Jimmy, what are you going to have?" I said nothing, just gritted my teeth and looked at the menu. Dinner that night was quiet and tense. I noticed everyone sneaking looks at me while I was angry inside. It was very uncomfortable. I wanted to talk to Rebecca on the way back to the hotel, but the kids were with us, so we drove in silence. When we got to our room, Rebecca suggested I have my usual gin and tonic on the balcony to relax. After 4 drinks, I went to bed and saw that Rebecca was already asleep. This morning, something else bothered me. I woke up alone and went downstairs for breakfast. Then I saw them by the pool. Elizabeth was sitting on Max's lap while he and Rebecca were talking closely. The way she looked at him hurt me. She used to look at me like that. I couldn't stay any longer. I left the pool area and drove home. Sitting in my empty house felt worse, so I decided to come to this job site to think clearly without my family around. That's how I ended up here just north of Calhoun. Emery let me stay here to sort things out, but people kept calling and texting, asking where I was. Even Max called, but I ignored him. I didn't delete their voicemails, though. After writing my notes, I reread them and had an idea. Julie, Max's second wife, came to mind. They had separated in April and were likely heading for a divorce. I got along well with her whenever we met. I found her number and called. She answered quickly. "Jimmy, I was wondering when you would call," she said. "You were expecting my call?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "When my private investigator told me you had left the hotel, I thought you might call." "Your private investigator was watching me?" I asked. "Actually, he was watching Max." She explained. "I knew he planned to meet Rebecca this weekend, so I had him followed." "How did you know that?" I asked. "After Max and I separated, I worked with a friend, Angela Hawkins, a family law attorney," Julie said. "We've been trying to get proof against Max. I think we'll get what we need this weekend." "Is that why you haven't divorced him yet?" I asked. "That's part of it," she answered. "Max wanted to wait a full year after we split up before going for a complete divorce," she said. "So you're saying Max and Rebecca are seeing each other?" I asked. "I think so," she replied. But I believe it goes deeper. I have a strong feeling they have been together since you married Rebecca, and there's something else. Something else? I asked, feeling a knot in my stomach. Yes, she continued. I think your mother not only knew about their relationship, but supported and helped them. My mom? I asked, stunned. Yes, Jimmy, she said. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this. You're a good person and you don't deserve this. This made a lot of things make sense. Then a terrible thought hit me. What about the kids? I asked. Are they his or mine? We can't know for sure without a DNA test, she answered. But I have a feeling at least one of them isn't yours. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Where are you now? I'd rather not say over the phone, I replied. I'm trying to keep away from my family right now, and I'm taking things as they come. I get it, she said. Try to get some sleep and come back to Atlanta tomorrow. If you don't want to go home, find a long-term stay somewhere. I'd offer you my place, but it wouldn't be wise given the situation. Let me know where you're staying and we'll figure out the next steps. That sounds good, I told her. And don't worry, I won't tell anyone, she said. Thanks, I really appreciate that, I said, and we ended the call. I sat there trying to absorb what Julie had told me. How would I miss this? Was I so blinded by love for Rebecca? Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. Please, the message said. Where are you? We're all so worried. Away, I typed back. Away, why? She responded. Is he there with you? I wrote, ignoring her question. Who? She asked. You know who, I replied. You mean Max? Yes, he's here. We're all worried about you. She texted. Yes, I felt your worry since I got there, I messaged back. It's not what you think, she wrote. Please call me. We need to talk, she added. Yes, we do. Later, I replied. I love you, she wrote. I looked at her message but didn't reply. I didn't feel much love for Rebecca right now, not after what Julie had just told me. I placed the phone on the desk and stared out the window. Let her worry about my silence, I thought. The phone buzzed with more messages from Rebecca. Jimmy? Are you there? Please, Jimmy, talk to me. I ignored both and turned to my laptop. After a quick search, I booked a long-term stay at a hotel in Atlanta near my office. Yes, it cost a bit, but I could afford it. After that, I pulled up pictures of the kids. I looked at their faces for a long time and compared their features to Max's. The more I looked, the more I saw Max in their faces. Could it be that he's really their father? Feeling disgusted, hurt, and angry, I shut the laptop down and lay on the cot to try to sleep. Emery arrived early the next morning and we talked over coffee. After saying goodbye, I drove to Atlanta and checked into my room. It was nicely furnished, and the bed looked much more comfortable than the cot from the night before. After putting away my stuff, I took a shower, dressed, and called Julie to let her know I had arrived. I saw that Rebecca and my parents had called and texted me several times during the night. I'm glad you called, she said. I got some video from my private investigator this morning. You really stirred things up. Angela will meet us here to go over what we have. Sounds good, I said. Julie gave me her address and I left to meet her and her lawyer. When I got to her condo, she let me in and introduced me to Angela Hawkins, a nice-looking woman with long brown hair and kind eyes. Nice to meet you, Mr. Foreman, Angela said. Please call me Jimmy, I said. My father is Mr. Foreman. She laughed and Julie brought us coffee, which I gladly accepted. Julie said she received some interesting video this morning. Oh? I asked. Yes, Julie replied. It's mostly talk, but it explains a lot. We have some confessions that will help us. Assuming you want a divorce? Well, let's see what you have, I said. Julie opened her laptop and played the video. The investigator got this video this morning, Julie said. He thought I should see it right away. She started the video, and I saw my parents Rebecca and Max sitting around a table. Elizabeth was in Max's lap, and James was next to Rebecca eating breakfast. So you heard from Jimmy last night? Mom asked. Yes, I did, Rebecca replied. Any idea where he is? Dad asked. No, none. He just said he was away, Rebecca said. Do you think he knows about you, the kids, and Max? Mom asked. Her eyebrows furrowed. He seems very suspicious, Rebecca said. I don't know how much he actually knows. Max laughed at that. He doesn't know anything, Max said. He's just upset because you were spending time with me instead of him. Well, to be honest, Max, you and Rebecca were very close yesterday, right in front of him. He'd have to be blind not to see it, Dad said. And it didn't help that James said he saw Max at the club on Friday, Mom added. So what do we do? Rebecca asked. I really don't want to hurt Jimmy. I might not love him like I used to, but I still care about him, she said. We've been doing the same thing for 7 years, Max replied. He hasn't figured it out yet, and he probably never will. Jimmy's not very smart, Mom said. You've had 2 of Max's kids, and he still doesn't know. Are you sure Max is their dad? Rebecca asked. Of course, dear, Mom replied. I'm not stupid. I had DNA tests done when they were born. I still have the results. So we stick to the plan, Max said. I'll file for divorce from Julie in April saying she abandoned me. Once that's done, we'll move forward. And what is the plan? Dad asked. Jimmy will keep working to support my kids and make sure his wife lives well. Meanwhile, I'll spend time with Rebecca. Maybe she'll give Jimmy some attention sometimes to keep him happy, Max said, bouncing Elizabeth on his knee. So you don't want his business or his money? Dad asked. Max laughed. I have my own money and don't know what Jimmy does for work. He'll need his money for my kids. So, no, Max said. When were you going to tell him all this? Dad asked. After my divorce from Julie is final, Max answered. And if Jimmy doesn't agree, Dad asked. I have ways to make sure I get what I want. Max replied with a sneer. What do you mean? Dad asked. People who go to jail for child-related crimes have a tough time, Max said. It's not nice. You'd frame your own half-brother to get his wife. You 3 are crazy, Dad said, looking very worried. You'll never get away with this, only if needed. I know the kids mean a lot to him. If it comes to that, we'll see what we can do. Max said. Mom laughed. Now why don't you 2 spend time with the kids while Rebecca and I go upstairs to relax? He put Elizabeth down and left with Rebecca. What's wrong, James? Mom asked after they left. I accepted and raised Max as my own, Dad said quietly. I never agreed to this. How could you do this to your own son? Do you really hate Jimmy that much? I don't hate Jimmy, Mom said. I gave birth to him, took care of him, changed his diapers. Yeah, after you threatened to get rid of him, Dad said. It was my choice, Mom replied. Besides, it's about genetics. Look at Max and look at Jimmy. Max is smart, strong, and successful. Jimmy is just like you, she said angrily. I'm not going to let you ruin him like this, Dad said. And what are you going to do about it? Mom asked mockingly. Divorce me. Max will crush you. You know he can. You would send Max after me, after I took care of him, sent him to college. Dad said, You're worse than I thought, Mary. I should have left you long ago. But you didn't, Mom said. So now you and Jimmy have to deal with it. Your heart isn't strong anymore. You could have a heart attack or stroke any time. Is that a threat? Dad asked, serious. No, just a warning, Mom said. Julie stopped the video and looked at me. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Did I really know these people? Julie put a hand on my arm. I'm sorry, Jimmy, she said. I had no idea it was this bad. I nodded and looked at Angela. I want a divorce, I said. Angela nodded. I'll start right away, she said. I'll assume you want most of the assets. I'll need your financial information. Don't do anything rash from what I saw there committing fraud. Adultery is still a crime in this state. We have enough for a complaint. What about the children? If they're right, the kids aren't mine, I said. We'll ask the judge for a DNA test, Angela said. If Max is the father, we'll handle that. Okay, I said. Can you get your private investigator to put cameras and microphones in my house? It's a holiday weekend. If someone is available, it'll cost extra. Angela said, That's fine. I'll pay, I said. She made a call and told me someone would come, but I had to pay a premium. That's fine, I said. I need to grab some things for you anyway. I'll bring them to your office in the morning. Is that okay? Yes, Angela said. I'll cover the cost for the PI, I told Julie. Thank you, Julie said. I saved for months to hire him. It wasn't easy. I understand, I said. We talked strategy and finances for a bit longer. Since Julie helped uncover this, I decided to pay her back for the money she spent. Given everything, I felt I owed her that much. I offered to help with her divorce costs, but she said she'd have Max cover that. We wrapped up our talk and I went to the house. When I got there, a pickup was parked in front. I guessed it was the investigator. I let him in and handed over the folders with our financial details. Then I packed more of my clothes and personal stuff into my vehicle. I also took my computer and loaded as much as I could. The investigator showed me how to access the system that stored the video in a secure online spot. When he was done, I paid him and gave him an extra $100 for his effort. It was a holiday weekend, after all. He smiled, took the money, and we shook hands. On my way out, I took off my wedding ring and left it on the kitchen counter. Meanwhile, Rebecca and others kept calling and texting, but I ignored them. To me, it felt like I no longer had a family. When I got back to the hotel, I ate a quick lunch and went to my room. My phone rang while I was going over the financials. It was my father. I decided to answer. "Hello," I said in a flat voice. "Jimmy, is that you?" My father asked. "Yes, what do you want?" I responded. "Where are you? The whole family is worried sick about you," he said. I snorted at that. "Family, huh?" I asked. "I didn't know I had one of those." "That's not fair, Jimmy," he said. "I've always supported you. That was true. As far as I knew, he had always taken my side, at least when I was around. I guess that's true. At least when I was with you," I said. "So where are you?" he asked. "Away," I said. "I found out some things I need to deal with. You taught me to stand up for myself, so that's what I'm doing." "What things?" he asked. "I think you know exactly what things," I said. "Maybe you didn't agree with them, but you knew." "Tell me something." "What?" he asked. "That woman you married. What did she do to you?" I asked. "It's a long story," he finally said. "She cheated on you, didn't she?" I asked. "Had a child with someone else and made you raise him?" "That was a long time ago," he said. "How did you know?" "I figured it out," I said. "It took a while, but I finally did after what I saw and heard these last few days. I always wondered why Max and I were so different, and I wondered why Mom treated me like dirt. Now it all makes sense." "Jimmy, please, it's not like that," Dad said. "Bullshit, Dad," I said. "Don't lie to me, not after all these years." "All right, son," he said. "I won't. But I need to tell your mother something. What should I say? Your wife cheated on you and almost did the same to me. You can tell her that as far as I'm concerned, my mother is dead to me," I said. "Same with my so-called brother and soon-to-be ex-wife." I heard him gasp. "I can't tell them that." "All hell will break loose, you know that, right?" Dad asked. "So what?" I said. "They tried to destroy me first. I was just too trusting to see it at first. They started this." "What about your kids?" Dad asked. "This will be hardest on them. I don't have kids, remember?" "Your 3 buddies saw to that," I said. "Let Rebecca and your wife explain that Uncle Max is really their father. Besides, it looks like they prefer Max anyway." "What are you going to do?" Dad asked. "Whatever it takes to protect myself," I said. "I know this is tough, Jimmy, but please don't let this change you," Dad said. "Too late for that, Dad," I said. "I know where I stand in this so-called family now, and I won't sit still for it. Goodbye, Dad. I'll talk to you later." With that, I hung up and went back to what I was doing. Not long after, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Mary, Dad's wife. I reluctantly answered. "Hello," I said. "Jimmy, this is your mother," she said. "I'm sorry, my mother is dead," I told her in a flat voice. Silence for a few seconds, then a sniffle. "Jimmy, that's not funny," she said. "I am your mother and I want to speak with you." "That's Mr. Foreman to you," I said. "You gave birth to me, but you're not my mother. She's dead to me." "What do you want, Mrs. Foreman?" "So it's Mr. and Mrs. Foreman now, is it?" she asked, her voice getting sharper. "All right, Mr. Foreman. I was going to apologize for how things went this weekend. I had hoped we could have a nice time, but you ruined it by leaving. We were worried about you." "Yeah, right," I thought, chuckling. "Yes, something did happen, Mrs. Foreman." I said, "I saw the truth. I saw that most of the people I grew up with are liars and backstabbers, and I suspect something about my wife that I can't live with. So I decided to get myself out of the bad spot you all put me in to figure things out." "And what have you figured out?" she asked, her voice sneering. "That's none of your business, Mrs. Foreman." I said, "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to do." "Wait," she said. "Jimmy, Mr. Foreman, I know you're upset and I don't blame you. If I saw and heard what you did, I would be upset too. Just know that we all love you. You have 2 wonderful kids who need you," said Mrs. Foreman. "Is that so?" "I'll keep that in mind," I said, ending the call. I poured myself some coffee and got back to my work. Not long after, my phone buzzed again. Can't these people leave me alone? I thought. I saw it was my soon-to-be ex-wife. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but remembered I promised her we'd talk later, so I answered, "What?" I asked, annoyed. Jimmy? Rebecca asked. What do you want, Rebecca? I asked with a cold tone. I just wanted to see if you were okay, she said nervously. We're all very worried about you. Sure you are, I said sarcastically. Please, Jimmy, don't act like this. The kids miss their dad. Really? Didn't they just see him? I asked. What? She sounded surprised. You heard me, I said. They couldn't get away from me fast enough to be with him, and they spent Friday with him at the club. You were there too, I bet. Jimmy, I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Come on, Rebecca, cut the crap. Why did you really call? I just wanted to let you know we're leaving the hotel soon, she said. I have work next week. Will I see you when I get home? No, I said. No? Where will you be? She asked. Not your business, I said. Jimmy, what's wrong? You don't sound like yourself, she said. Please, Jimmy, talk to me. I'm worried about you and I love you. Is that so? I asked. Could have fooled me. Despite what you, Max, and Mrs. Foreman think, I'm not dumb. Mrs. Foreman, you mean your mom? She asked. I don't have a mom. She's dead to me, I said. I heard her gasp. You can't mean that, she said. Yes, I do, and you know why, I said. Jimmy, I don't know what you think is happening, but we need to talk when I get back, she said. We'll talk, all right? I said. Just one thing. What's that? She asked. Adultery is still against the law in Georgia, I said. You can go to jail for a year if you're caught. Why are you telling me this? She asked. You're smart. Figure it out. Goodbye. I ended the call. A couple of minutes later, the phone rang again. It was Max. I skipped his call earlier, but decided to take this one. Curious about his reaction to what I told Rebecca? What? I said sharply. Jimmy, it's me, Max. Your brother, he said calmly. I guessed that when your name showed up. What do you want? I'm busy, I said. Jimmy, I think there's been a major misunderstanding, he said. I just wanted to clear things up. You're right. After what I heard at dinner and what I saw at the pool, not to mention Rebecca hardly talking to me, it's definitely major, I said. And I'll handle it. Rebecca told me what you said, he said. First, no one has been convicted of adultery in Georgia for 100 years. Second, it's unlikely any cops will get involved even if you file a report. Mom and Dad told me what you said, and I must say I'm deeply hurt. Mom is absolutely crushed. I get that you're angry and I can't blame you, but you have a wife and 2 kids who care deeply about you. Listen, I'll be flying back to Atlanta with Rebecca and the kids. When we get to your house, why don't you and I go somewhere, grab a drink, and talk like brothers? It's been a long time since we did that. Maybe we can clear the air. What do you say? I knew I had to control my feelings. The last thing I needed was to act too quickly. If Max or someone like him messed with my computer, that could be bad. I needed them to think I was just mad, nothing more. I took a deep breath. We will talk, Max, I said slowly, but it will be on my terms. All right, Jimmy, he said. If that's what you want, I'll always be here for you. That's what I want, I said. For now, leave me alone. No more calls, no more texts. I'll contact you when I'm ready. No more calls or texts. Got it, Max said. Want to talk to Mom, Dad, or Rebecca? No, I said. I've said all I need to. All right, Jimmy, he said. We'll talk later. I ended the call and put the phone down. I tried to calm my breathing and my pounding heart. Was Max taunting me? He hadn't denied anything. After I calmed down, I decided to grab a quick bite to eat, then lay down for a few hours of sleep. I knew it would take about an hour for their flight to reach Atlanta, plus about 2 hours for security, and another hour to drive home from the airport. So I figured I had roughly 4 hours. I wanted to keep an eye on the security system when Max and Rebecca got to the house. When I woke up, I checked the time. They should be arriving soon, so I brought up my laptop and logged into the system. There was no activity, so I figured they probably stopped for gas and food on the way. The next day, I made some coffee, used the restroom, and then sat back down. About 30 minutes later, I saw my front door open. Rebecca and Max came in, each carrying a sleeping child. They looked around the dark room, then turned on the lights. His car's not here. Rebecca said, I don't know if he's been here. Let's put the kids to bed, and then we can check. Max told her. I watched as they took the children to their rooms. They came back down, and Rebecca went into the kitchen. How about I make us some coffee? She asked. Sounds good, Max replied, sitting on the couch. Rebecca went to the kitchen and switched on the light. That's when she saw my ring sitting alone on the counter. She gasped and picked it up. "He's been here," she said, holding the ring. Max walked over to her. "This doesn't change anything," he said. "He's just upset." "How much do you think he knows?" she asked, worried. "He doesn't know anything." "Trust me," Max said. "I'm not sure," Rebecca said, carefully setting the ring down. She still looked shaken, despite Max's confidence. "He seemed to know a lot when we talked. He was just trying to make you admit something." Max said, "He's been clueless for 7 years, and he still is." "But you've never seen him work before." Rebecca said, "I'm afraid you and your mother may have underestimated him." "Look, we've been tricking him for 7 years," Max said. "He hasn't figured it out, and he won't if we're careful." "I know we've been very careful, but his dad was right. We were pretty obvious this weekend," she said. "Trust me, honey. We could be right in front of him and he wouldn't figure it out." Max said, "Why do you and your mother dislike him so much?" Rebecca asked. "It's not about disliking him," Max said. "He's what you would call a beta male. It means he exists to serve others." "Like you?" Rebecca asked. "Something like that," Max said, shrugging. "Come on, let's look around, see if anything's missing." I watched, changing camera views as they went from room to room, checking what I had taken or left. I thought maybe I should have paid the tech more. They didn't notice any of the cameras as they searched the house. They met back in the front room. "Well," Max asked. "His computer is gone and some files are missing from his desk," Rebecca said. "A lot of his clothes and toiletries are missing too." "What files?" Max asked, showing some concern. "No idea. Jimmy handles all the paperwork. It's probably work stuff," she said. "Was there a note? Did he break anything?" "No, and no, he didn't break anything." She told him, "Do you think we should call the police?" "No, they won't do anything unless he's been gone a few days, and even then they might not." Max said, "Look, it's late. Let's go to bed and start fresh in the morning. You just want to sleep in Jimmy's bed?" Rebecca said with a smile. "Of course, especially if you're in it," Max said. "It wouldn't be the first time we've done it there with the kids down the hall." "I guess you're right." They laughed and walked up the stairs holding hands. I switched the camera to the master bedroom. As I watched, they undressed and got under the covers like they had done it 1,000 times. I couldn't take any more and shut my laptop. At that moment, any love I had left for Rebecca was gone. I hated her. I hated the man she was with. I hated his mother, and a bit. I hated my dad for not dealing with this sooner. I closed my eyes tight and groaned as tears rolled down my face. Hearing your spouse is cheating is one thing, but seeing it is another. At least I wasn't there in person to see it. I couldn't have handled that. Part of me wanted to hurt them both slowly for what they did. I knew if I had been there, I'd be in jail or the hospital right now. At least I wasn't going crazy. I knew more than they thought, and I was planning revenge. I promised myself they would pay. Then I thought of the children. What should I do about them? I didn't want custody. They were Max's kids and his responsibility. I had loved them since they were born, but now they were a reminder of my family's betrayal, and I didn't think I could look at them the same way again. I went downstairs and had a gin and tonic at the bar. I had one more and decided to go to bed. I'd had enough drama for one day and was mentally and physically worn out. The next morning I got up, did my routine, showered, and ate breakfast. I checked the video from my house and saw the 2 cheaters had left for the day after getting the kids ready and off to daycare. One thing stood out, though. Both kids asked their mom where I was, and James had another question. "Mom, why were you and Uncle Max in Dad's bed?" he asked. "Oh, sweetie, Uncle Max was tired from the long trip yesterday, so he stayed overnight," Rebecca said. "But why didn't he stay in the guest room?" James asked. "We were talking about some things," Rebecca said. "Are you and Dad getting divorced?" James asked. His sad voice broke my heart. Rebecca's eyes widened as she looked at him. "Of course not, honey," she said. I copied the video to my thumb drive, called my office to say I'd be late, and left. My first stop was Angela's office. When I got there, her receptionist took me to Angela's room. I saw Julie next to Angela's desk and nodded. "Good morning, Jimmy," she said. "How are you? I'm hanging in there. I wish I was used to it by now, but I'm not." "The hits keep coming," I said. "I've got the video and my finances," I told Angela, handing her the thumb drive and a printed spreadsheet. "If you need more, let me know." "Thanks," she said. This looks good, she added, looking at the spreadsheet and the form. I'll check the video and call you if anything comes up. Thanks, I said, then left. At the office, I told Sheila, my PA, to stop any personal calls. Is everything okay? She asked. Not really, but I'll handle it, I replied. I tried to focus on my work, but it was hard. I got a call from Angela around 2:30 p.m. How are you, Jimmy? She asked. It's tough, but I'm dealing with it, I said. Thanks for asking. You're welcome, she said. Can you come to my office around 4:30 this afternoon? Sure, I said. What's up? I'll explain when you get here, she said. Julie met me when I got to Angela's office. She had a big grin on her face. What's going on? I asked. You'll see, Jimmy, she said. We went into Angela's office and Julie shut the door. Thanks for coming by on short notice, Angela said. No problem, I said. What do you have for me? First, I talked briefly with the district attorney, Angela said. He's very interested in possible conspiracy and fraud charges against Max, Rebecca, and your mother. He wants to check if the video gives enough reason to start at the case. The DA thinks the video can be used since they were in public and didn't hide anything, so it's allowed in court. Also, he sees Max as a future political rival. Your mom's family has tried for political positions before. Judges, DAs, attorneys general, even governor and senator runs. Angela shrugged. If this helps us and hurts them, it's good for us. That's good, I said. What else? The video from your house last night is enough proof for adultery. So I'm filing those papers now, she said. I've also asked the court to make Rebecca get DNA tests for the kids. Why? I asked. They've admitted Max is the biological father, and my mom already says she has the DNA results. Have you seen those results yourself? Angela asked. No, I haven't, I told her. Exactly, Angela said. Those tests are from 4 to 6 years ago. There's been a lot of advances in science since then. That's why I want to get those test results and compare them to ours. Why go through all this trouble? I asked. Look at this, Angela said, turning her laptop to me. Yeah, I've seen this, I said, looking at the image of Rebecca with Max. No, look here, Angela said, pointing to the side of the video. I looked and saw the doorway she pointed to, but there was something else. A small, shadowy figure. I looked at Angela, confused. I visited a video specialist I work with. Angela said he made the picture clearer. Look, she showed me an image and I could clearly see who was standing in the doorway. It was little James, his eyes wide as he watched his mother with Max. Oh my God, I said. No wonder James asked Rebecca if she was getting a divorce. Can we call someone Child Protective Services, maybe? I doubt they would act based just on this. Angela said, however, a judge won't like it. Have you thought about asking for custody? No, I haven't, I told her. I figured they're Max's kids. I don't want to raise another man's child. But if they turn out to be yours, Angela asked. You think that's possible? I said. I've seen stranger things happen, Angela said, and I want to be ready for anything. Max is arrogant and sneaky. I want him in a trap. The video of him talking about planting evidence on you would be embarrassing, but not enough to get him disbarred. He could say he was joking or angry. Strong DNA proof will be a big weapon against him. Let's see what the DNA test results say first, I told her. All right, Angela said. When did you last talk to them? Saturday before I left them in Florida, I said. You should call them tonight just to let them know you're okay and thinking of them, Angela said. It will also look good to the judge, like you're trying to do the right thing. Maybe you're right, I finally said. So what's next? We get the DNA test results, then I'll file for both of you, Angela said. And how long will it take to get the results? I asked. It usually takes about 8 to 10 days, but you can get results in 48 to 72 hours if you pay more, Angela said. All right, I said. I'll pay the extra to get the results faster. When will the judge sign the order? I should have it tomorrow, Angela said. If so, I'll have Rebecca serve the same day. Here's the contact information for the lab I use, she added, handing me a card. Once she's served the papers, I'll text you the case number. You can use that when you give them your DNA sample. Thanks, I said. Is that all for now? Yes, Angela replied. Don't worry, Jimmy. We'll get through this. We said goodbye and I went to eat and rest. This whole situation was wearing me out and I just wanted it to be over. When I got to my room, I turned on the house's surveillance system to see what was happening. Rebecca had just come home and was taking care of the kids. I realized I missed the kids, so I decided to call home like Angela suggested. Foreman residence, Rebecca answered. She didn't see my number on the phone screen. Hello, Rebecca, I said. Jimmy, where are you? When are you coming home? She asked, sounding worried. I just called to speak to the kids, I told her. But when are you coming home? She asked again. I don't know, I replied. Now, can I speak to the kids or not? Of course, she said. Hold on, I heard her call James and Elizabeth telling them I was on the phone. James picked up first. Dad, where are you? He asked. I'm taking care of some things, I said. Are you all right? Yeah, James said. I just wish you were home. Me too, I said. I really meant it. I wished I could be their real dad reading them bedtime stories. Answer me one thing, yes or no. Does your Uncle Max stay over when I'm gone? Yeah, he said right away. The whole night, I asked. Uh-huh, James replied. Has this been happening for a while? I asked. Yeah, James said sadly. Thank you for being honest with me, James. I said, you're welcome. So when are you coming home? He asked. I don't know. As soon as I can, I said, trying not to cry. The situation was hurting two innocent kids. I love you, he said with childlike honesty. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. Despite everything, I love these kids and would miss them terribly. I love you too, I finally said. He passed the phone to Elizabeth and we talked. She mostly babbled about her dolls. After we said I love you, she handed the phone back to Rebecca. When are you coming home, Jimmy? She asked. I don't know, I said. I'm not sure I really have a home anymore. That's nonsense, Jimmy, and you know it. I need you home. The kids need you too. She said, what's gotten into you? It's not what's gotten into me, I replied. It's who's gotten into you. What? She asked, acting shocked. What makes you think I've been with someone else? Please don't insult my intelligence, I told her. I've had enough of all of you. You didn't even tell me you were out with Max and my parents at Indian River Club that Friday. You lied to me. You made it seem like they were just coming Saturday. You think I didn't see how you and the kids acted around Max. How would you feel if the person you loved did that right in front of you? So that's it, she said. You think because I was polite to Max I'm having an affair? Polite? Are you kidding me? You almost threw yourself at him in front of me. The whole time you didn't give me even a kiss. You made sure we were never alone. Do you know how much it hurt to see the woman I loved do that? Wait, you said loved as in past tense? She said. Don't you love me anymore? I wondered when she would catch on to that. What do you think? I asked. How would you feel in my place? Jimmy Foreman, you need to come home right now, she said after a pause. We'll figure this out when you get here. And if I don't, then I might find comfort in your brother's arms, she said angrily. I stared at the monitor, her words echoing in my ears. Part of me was glad I was recording this. The other part wanted to bury her neck deep in an anthill. I saw her expression change as she realized what she had just said and tried to take it back. I'm sorry, Jimmy, that just slipped out. You've hurt me. You've never hurt me before, and that just threw me off, she said. I let some emotion show and replied before I could think it through. Rebecca, when was the last time we were close? She looked blank, clearly not expecting that question. Then she looked worried, almost panicked. If the ache in my heart hadn't turned so sharp, her changing expression would have been funny. Jimmy, where did that come from? We were close, really, last week, don't you remember? I saw her looking desperately at the calendar. She couldn't even remember the last pity time she tried to keep me happy. I had to end this call before I lost control and said something I shouldn't about the evidence I had. Really, Jimmy, you need to come home and be my husband. Do what you feel you have to do, I said. Just know this. I am not your servant anymore, and I will not be your fool. If you do something with him, we're done. If I find out you have been with him any time since we married, we're done. I will divorce you, and I will make it painful. Do you understand me? I looked at the laptop display and saw her with the phone, her head in her hands. She didn't look as beautiful to me anymore. I watched her wipe a tear from her face before speaking, whether she felt some guilt for tricking someone who only loved her, or if she had any real feeling for me, or maybe her picture-perfect life was falling apart and she could sense it, I wasn't sure. I told myself I didn't care. Do you really mean that? She asked quietly. Yes, I said. I do. All right, Jimmy, I understand, she said. Please come back to me. Do what you have to, but just come home. I love you. Don't worry. You'll hear from me soon, I said. Goodbye, Rebecca. I ended the call and wondered if she noticed I didn't tell her that I loved her. I watched the surveillance video to see her reaction. In a strange, detached way, I wondered if she even realized she never denied any of my accusations. She didn't say I was imagining things or that she never slept with Max. Not that it mattered, but I vaguely wondered if she had a mental disorder like split personality. I shook my head. In the end, it didn't matter. She had one body, and she gave it to Max without hesitation. She held the phone for a moment, staring at it. She put it down slowly before collapsing in a chair. I stretched out on the bed and turned on the TV, keeping an eye on the laptop on the desk. Sometime later, about an hour maybe, I saw Rebecca answer the door. It was Max, no doubt there for his evening visit. "Are you okay?" he asked when he walked in. "You look like you lost all your cookies." She chuckled at that. "Jimmy called earlier. She said, 'Talk to the kids.' That's a good sign. Did he talk to you too?" Max asked. "Yes," she said. "He threatened me with a rough divorce if he found out I was cheating on him." Max said, "So he doesn't know about us yet, that's good." "But the way he talked, it sounds like he knows something," she said. "If he knew, he would have mentioned it." "I think he's trying to make you say something damaging." Max said, "Do you think you should talk to him?" Rebecca asked. Max thought for a moment before responding. "Not yet." He finally said, "Let's see what he does first." "Are you staying here tonight?" she asked. "No, I have to head out for Savannah in the morning to meet a client. I'll visit Mom while I'm there." He said, "I might be gone for a few days. Will you be okay?" "I'll be fine," she said. "Call me when you get there." "I will," he said, giving her a kiss. "I love you, Max," she said. He smiled and replied, "I love you too." He said, "That hurt me more than anything else. Did I really know any of these people?" At 2:30 the next afternoon, I got a text from Angela. Rebecca had been served with the order for the children to have DNA tests. Soon after, I received a very angry call from my wife. "What is this?" she yelled. "What is what?" I asked, staying calm. "This order to have the kids' DNA tested," she screamed. "What are you trying to do?" "Not trying to do anything," I said. "I just want to know if the children are mine." "Why would you think they're not?" she demanded. "I have reasons to believe they may not be. After seeing your behavior by the pool, I looked closely at pictures of me, the kids, and Max. I wanted her to think I only had suspicions. I have good reasons to believe they might not be mine. I want to know the truth for my own peace of mind," I said. "My name may be on their birth certificates, but honestly, your words don't mean much to me lately," I said. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." I ended the call. She called right back, but I ignored it. I left work early and went to the testing center to give a sample of my DNA. From there, I got something to eat and went back to the hotel. When I got there, I turned on the video surveillance of the house to see what was happening. I checked all the cameras, but didn't see Rebecca or the children. I had just turned on the TV when my phone rang. It was my mother. I thought about letting it go to voicemail, but I decided to answer. "Hello," I said. "Jimmy, this is your mother," she said. "What do you mean by having Rebecca take the children for DNA tests? What are you trying to do? First off, I told you my mother is dead, Mrs. Foreman. Second, I made it clear to Max that I would call you, not the other way around. And third, what I do is none of your business," I said. "Stop that Mrs. Foreman nonsense, Jimmy," she snapped angrily. "I am your mother, and you will not use that tone with me." "Or what?" I taunted, hoping to get her to admit something incriminating for my recorder. "You'll ground me. Give me a break." "All right, Jimmy, Mr. Foreman, if you prefer," she said. "What's this about a DNA test? A man has a right to know if the children he's been raising are his," I said. "But those are your children," she insisted. "I have reasons to think otherwise," I said. "Why do you say that?" she asked. "I think you know full well," I said. I heard her sigh over the phone. "Jimmy, I don't know what's gotten into you these last few days, but you need to get your head out of the sand and face reality," Mary said. "And what reality is that?" I asked. "I want you to stop the order," Mary said. "Then we'll talk." "That's not how it works, Mrs. Foreman," I said. "Do you have something to confess?" "No, Jimmy, sorry, Mr. Foreman," she replied. "You've been upsetting a lot of people with your attitude recently." "If what I suspect is true, there will be more people upset before this is over," I said. "Now, if you don't mind, I have a lot to do. Goodbye." I ended the call. She tried calling back, but I ignored it. I sat down in my recliner and put my feet up. The TV was on, as was my computer. I was watching both to keep from getting too angry and to see what was happening in my house. Eventually, I saw Rebecca come in with the 2 kids. She didn't look happy, but I didn't care. She had stopped for fast food, which was unusual since she usually hated it. I saw her send the kids upstairs and throw away a bag and some empty cups. Then she picked up her phone to call someone. "Hey, it's me," she said. "I just got back with the kids. Can you believe he ordered a DNA test for the kids? It was so embarrassing. The technician came with a sheriff's deputy, and it happened so fast. I guess she was talking to Max. I tried to hear but couldn't make out the other side of the conversation." "You really think that's what he's doing?" she asked, pausing to listen. "I have a copy of the order. It's from someone named Angela Hawkins." After listening again, she added, "Yes, she's listed as the lawyer. Does that mean anything?" She sat down, putting one hand to her head. "You promise you'll call him tonight?" "Okay, thanks. I love you too. Bye." She hung up, and I knew she had been talking to Max. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was him, Max. I started the call recording app I had bought earlier as Angela suggested and answered. "What now?" I asked. "What's this about a paternity test?" Max asked. "It's what you do to check if the kids you're raising are really yours." I said, "Why do you care?" Rebecca said it was embarrassing the way you did it. Max said, "Did you really need to do that?" "Embarrassing? You don't know what that means." I said, "Jimmy, I talked to Mom and Rebecca. They're very upset. What's going on with you?" Max asked. "Let's just say I'm learning a lot about my so-called family," I replied. I could almost hear Max thinking hard. "Listen, I'm in Savannah now," Max said. "I'll be back in a couple of days. We need to talk. Clear the air." He sighed deeply like a parent trying to be patient with a stubborn child. "I can't believe you'd waste money on a lawyer like Angela Hawkins to bother the people who love you." "But it's your money," Max added, like catching a child misbehaving. "Is that right?" I asked. "Yes," Max said. "Tell you what, when I get back, I'll call and we can set up a meeting. Just you and me, okay?" "We'll see," I said. We ended the call and I stopped the recording. I wondered what Max had planned. That night I hardly slept and was barely able to work the next day. In the afternoon, Dad showed up at my office. "Dad, what brings you here?" I asked as he walked in. "I just wanted to visit," he said with a smile. "Can't a man visit his son these days?" "Of course," I said. "Would you like something to drink?" "Coffee, please," he said. "Decaf if you have it." "The doctor says no caffeine because of my heart. I think we can manage that," I said as I messaged my assistant. A few moments later, she came in with 2 cups of coffee, one marked decaf. "Not bad," he said after a careful sip. "So why drive all the way from the coast? Is your wife with you?" I asked, suspicious. "No, she's not with me," Dad said. "She thinks I'm here to talk some sense into you," he added, making air quotes. But I'm here to clear the air. Completely," he said. Then he looked down. "I'm also here to ask for your forgiveness and to warn you." "So she didn't come with you?" I asked. "No," he said. "I told her you wouldn't talk if she was around." I nodded. "Right," I said. "So I was right about her cheating on you, wasn't I?" "Yes," he said. "It was a long time ago before we got married. She didn't even hide it. Said she could do what she wanted until we were married, and it's been like that ever since." "Yes, pretty much," he said. "After we got married, we only had intimacy when she wanted to, and she was careful to use protection. But then she got pregnant. I found out while she was on her way to the abortion clinic. You were my child, I knew it. Though she had her flings, it was clear you were mine. I begged her not to abort you. She told me I had no say, married or not, it was her body. So I made a deal with her. Max would get everything he wanted or she wanted for him. No arguments from me, just sign the checks, show up, and play whatever role you needed to. I had to raise you. She focused on Max, and I tried to keep you away from them. If I had nothing else, at least I had you. Though her family barely tolerated both of us, they made sure only Max was in their wills. To them, you were practically invisible, even though you had just as much family blood as Max, maybe even more. You think you saved my life by being her scapegoat and checkbook? I asked, trying to understand. Something like that, he replied softly. So why did you stay with her? I asked. He looked embarrassed but determined. She came from a rich and well-known family, he said. Back then I had connections and money and expected to gain more. So her family leaned on me, hard, her, lover, wasn't around. and a scandal would have been bad. She wanted his better baby, and they needed her married before her pregnancy showed. He wiped his eyes before any tears formed. I'd never seen my father like this, and felt sorry for him. Yes, I loved the woman I thought she was, and I believed the child might be mine, but he wasn't, Dad said. I did my best for the family. I promised to raise the child as mine, no matter his real father, then you came along. That explains a lot, I said. All those years of her sly comments and fake compliments, I always wondered how Max and I could be brothers being so different. So how long has Max been cheating with my wife? From the beginning, Dad said sadly. And you knew all this time? No, not the whole time. I learned for sure after Elizabeth was born, he said. Your mother had a DNA test done on her. When I asked her why she said she wanted to make sure Elizabeth was Max's, she did the same after James was born. And you knew for the last 4 years and never told me? I asked, shocked. I had no choice, he said. I'm really sorry, son. Did they threaten you? I asked. He looked down and nodded shame on his face. Yes, he whispered. Mary Max, her family, his real father, all of them. Shortly after I found out about my heart problems, I think the stress was too much for me. I'm so sorry, son. Can you forgive me? Yeah, I think so, I said, but I don't get it. You and your wife always seem so happy. Yes, Mary can act really well in public, Dad said bitterly. It's completely different behind closed doors, but you already know a bit about that. You said you wanted to warn me about something, I said. I overheard Mary and Max talking last night, Dad said. Max is planning to pressure you just like his family did to me. Why? I asked. From what I heard, Max stands to gain money from his real father if he has a child. It seems the men in his family have trouble with that, Dad said. Who is his real father? I asked. Jackson Blumenthal, Dad said. You mean the state Supreme Court justice? I asked, shocked. Yep, Dad said. At the time, he was a powerful lawyer from a powerful family, just like Mary's family, full of lawyers, judges, and politicians. He married a woman for her money and name, but they couldn't have kids. A divorce would have caused too much drama, scandal, and anger. So he and Mary met. He was a handsome, powerful man and an arrogant jerk. Mary was beautiful and ready to have a well-bred child. Blumenthal's wife is sickly now. I don't know if she knew about the affair, and I'm vulnerable. I suspect the widow and widower will get together soon, and Max will become the heir, especially if your kids have Max's and Jackson's blood. What are you saying? I asked. I'm guessing once Elizabeth goes to college, they'll push you to give Rebecca a quiet, easy divorce. Rebecca and Max would marry quietly, live in another state, and Max would adopt the kids. He looked at me, eyes wet. Or if you don't agree with their plan, I think the widow will be comforted by her ex-husband's brother, and things will go their way. Sorry, Jimmy. Like father, like son, Dad chuckled. So when will Max pressure me? I asked. In the next couple of days, Dad said. I knew Max wanted to meet me after coming back from Savannah. I had an idea. Would you testify about all this in court? I asked. What are you planning? Dad asked. I can't explain now, I said. But I plan to bring them down hard if I can. Dad thought for a few moments before answering. Okay, son, he said. I'll help however I can. Oh, and before I forget. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to me. What's this? I asked. I got a copy of the DNA test results from a safe deposit box. These are certified true copies. I don't know what it all means. It's mostly just dashes, numbers, and scientific words. Maybe your lawyer can make sense of it, he said. Thanks, I replied. I'll let Angela have a look. How long are you in town for? Not long. I'm driving back this afternoon. I have a few meetings but wanted to see you and get this off my chest. Are we good? He asked. I looked him in the eye just like he taught me. I saw a man looking for his son's forgiveness. He had always been there for me, even risked his own safety. It was an easy decision. We're good, Dad, I said. We stood up and hugged. Thank you, he said, his voice full of emotion. I love you, son, he said, a tear rolling down his cheek. It had been years since I heard him say that. I had a strange feeling, but said nothing. I love you too, Dad, I replied. An hour after he left, my phone buzzed. It was Max. I decided to answer. Hello, I said. Jimmy, this is Max. He said, Yes, I know your name came up. What do you need? I'll be back in town tomorrow afternoon. Maybe we can have dinner, he suggested. All right, I said. How about Luigi's at 6:30 p.m.? Luigi's was a nice Italian restaurant. It was a bit pricey, but the food and service were great. Luigi's, huh? Okay, I'll meet you there at 6:30 p.m. See you then. He said, yeah, I said, ending the call. I then called Angela's office and set an appointment. I also told her about meeting Max. When I got there, I handed her the envelope. Dad had given me, and she introduced me to Detective Sam Gibbons. Jimmy, Detective Gibbons, contacted me after I spoke with the district attorney. He has an idea he wants to discuss. Angela said, what's that? I asked. I'd like to know if you'd wear a wire during your meeting with Max. The detective said, I guess. I said, why? We've been watching your brother's actions for a while, Sam said. He's not my brother, I said. At best, he's my half-brother. Brother, half-brother, whatever, Sam said. The fact is, we'd like a reason to arrest him. And you want me to be the lure? Is that it? I asked. Something like that, Sam said. He doesn't think very highly of you, which means he might slip up. If that happens, we'll arrest him. What kind of actions are we talking about? I asked. Extortion, blackmail, things like that, Sam said. Fraud and conspiracy? I asked. Some of that too. Will you help us? He asked. I looked at Julie and Angela as I thought about it. Then I remembered my father and made up my mind. Count me in, Detective, I said. He smiled and nodded. Thank you, Mr. Foreman, he said, handing me a pen. Just press this when you meet him. It'll transmit everything to my receiver. I'll be nearby with some officers. If he slips up, we'll move in. Don't worry. We've got your back. I appreciate that, I said. Angela gave a big smile. What is it? I asked. These reports say there's no way Max is the father of either child. Angela said, at best he's an uncle and a distant one at that. I was shocked and needed a moment to let her words sink in, but Mary claimed the tests showed they were Max's children. I said, this doesn't add up, it makes perfect sense. Angela said, she lied plain and simple, but why? I might know, I said. I told them what Dad had shared with me. Julie and Angela were stunned. Sam seemed unfazed. Oh my God, Julie said. What kind of people are these? Greedy, manipulative people willing to do anything to get their way, I said. Then a thought hit me. Max was married before, and yet he never fathered any children with you or his first wife. It was a sore spot between us, Julie said. We both wanted kids, but it never happened. Interesting, I said. Maybe Max can't father children. That's possible, Angela said. So you're set for tomorrow night? Yes, I said. It's time to end this act. We talked a bit more and then said our goodbyes. I had dinner at the hotel and went to my room. After a shower, I turned on my laptop to check the home security system. There wasn't much to see, just Rebecca looking after the children. I switched between the laptop and the TV. My phone buzzed around 9:30 p.m. It was Mary, my former stepmother. I wondered what she wanted, so I answered the call. Hello, I said. Jimmy, it's your Mrs. Foreman, she said. Her voice cracked and it sounded like she had been crying. What do you want now? I asked. Jimmy, your father is dead, she cried. They say he lost control of the car in Macon and ended up in the Ocmulgee River. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not only had I lost my wife to a man pretending to be my brother, but now my father was dead. A man who risked everything for me. When did this happen? I asked. A couple of hours ago, she said. I just heard from the state police. I'm sorry, Jimmy. I know how close you were to him. Thank you, I said, stunned by the news. Jimmy, Mr. Foreman, she said hesitantly. I know you don't think much of me right now, but I want you to know I really did love your father. Yeah, right, I thought. I loved him completely. Have you told Rebecca? I asked. I was going to call her next, Jimmy, she said. I'm so sorry for everything. Yeah, I said. Thanks for calling. Goodbye. I ended the call as tears streamed down my face. The man who gave up everything for me was now dead. Then it hit me. He knew this was coming. I couldn't explain it, but it was the only thing that made sense. I fell onto the bed crying. Then I heard Rebecca speaking to someone in the video. I gathered myself enough to watch. Hello, Rebecca said, answering the phone. What? When did this happen? Are you sure? Oh my God, have you told Jimmy? How did he react? Should I call him? She paused, processing the news. Was it shock? Surprise? Fear? Guilt? Maybe a mix of all of these. Okay, I'll take care of the kids. Max will be here tomorrow. Okay, that sounds good. Bye, she said, and ended the call. She looked upset, but not too much. It seemed like she expected this, just not so soon. I watched her dial another number. I sort of expected my phone to ring. It didn't, and I soon realized why. Hey, she said. It's me. I just heard. I'm so sorry. She listened to what Max was saying. Her face showed shock and horror. Did you have anything to do with this? Oh my God, we're in so much trouble. Are you still meeting with Jimmy tomorrow? You are? Good. Are you sure they can't trace anything back to us? I hope you're right. All right, sweetie. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you. She ended the call and sat on the couch. Then she picked up the phone and dialed another number. My phone buzzed seconds later, and I saw her name on the display. Hello, I said. Jimmy, it's me. Rebecca, she said, her voice shaky with emotion. What do you want? I asked, a bit annoyed. I just heard about your father. She said, I'm sorry. I didn't say anything as I tried to gather my thoughts. You did hear about your father, didn't you? Yes, his widow called me. I said, can't you set aside your hatred for 1 minute? She's your mother and she just lost her husband. Rebecca said, I suspect she'll get over it pretty quick. I said, have you told the kids yet? Not yet. She said, I'm not sure how they'll take it or if they'll even understand. I wish you were here to help. I'm sure you do, I said in a flat tone. Jimmy, no, Rebecca, I've seen and learned too much. Thank you for calling. I'll talk to you later. I said. I heard her calling my name as I ended the call, but I was too hurt to keep talking. I went to the bar, poured myself a drink, then went to bed. The next day I got a surprise visit at work from Sam and another man who I guessed was a detective. I was right. Mr. Foreman, this is Detective Simmons' homicide, Sam said. I introduced myself and shook the detective's hand. Homicide? I asked. Yes, he said. I asked them to sit down. First off, I want to say I'm sorry for the loss of your father. Thank you, Detective, I said. But I suspect you have more to add. Yes, Mr. Foreman, I do, he said. I got a strange message this morning. It was delivered to me by hand. I knew Detective Gibbons was working with you and asked if we could chat. Do you think there's something suspicious? I asked. I'm not ruling it out, Simmons said. What can you tell me about the relationship between your brother, Max Foreman, and your father? Well, for starters, Max isn't my brother, I said. I recently found out he's my half-brother. His father, according to my dad, is Jackson Blumenthal. The state Supreme Court Justice? Simmons asked. Yes, I said. Interesting, he said. What else can you tell me? I told him the short version of what my father had revealed to me and added what I had found out myself. He listened closely, taking notes. When I finished, he looked at Sam. They seemed to communicate without speaking. I could tell there was more to this than I knew. Finally, he looked at me. And you're meeting, Max, tonight at Luigi's, right? Simmons asked. That's right, I said. At 630, I may see you there, Mr. Foreman. He said. Can you tell me what was in this message you got? I asked. I'm afraid I can't discuss that right now, he said. By the way, did you know your father changed his will? No, I didn't, I said. He made it official yesterday. According to his lawyer, Jason Miller, there were some big changes, Simmons said. You didn't know that? No, I had no idea, I said. He never told me anything about it. All right, that's all for now, Mr. Foreman, the detective said. I may have more questions later, so please stay around for a while. I can let others handle the trips outside, I said. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Thank you, Mr. Foreman, Simmons said. We'll be in touch. They got up and left. I walked them to the door and closed it after they were gone. I couldn't help but wonder if Max had played a part in Dad's accident. I turned to my desk and saw something new, a tiny USB drive. It was on the edge of the desk where Simmons had sat. I didn't remember seeing him put it there. I picked it up and plugged it into my laptop. After my antivirus confirmed it was clean, I opened the single Word document on it. I double-clicked the file and saw what looked like an IP address, a username, and a password. I typed the IP address into my web browser, and a login screen popped up. I entered the username and password and got a screen full of pictures with dates and times. The most recent one was from yesterday morning. I double-clicked it and my video app opened. I saw Max sitting in my parents' living room with Mary. When did he leave? Max asked. He left early this morning, Mary replied. Any idea what he planned to do? Max asked. I know he was going to see Jimmy, Mary said. I think he's also planning to see Jason about something. He got a call from Jason's office yesterday. That could be about a lot of things, Max said. Maybe he's just handling his taxes. Maybe, but I don't think so, Mary replied. He's up to something. I heard he accessed the safety deposit box recently and got some paperwork. DNA test results, Max asked. I think so, Mary said. He hasn't been the same since this whole thing with Jimmy happened. I'm worried. Do you think he's grown a spine after all these years? Max asked with a smirk. Mary laughed a little. Maybe him and Jimmy both, she said. What are you saying? Do you want him gone for good like we talked before? Max asked. Mary looked at him seriously before answering. Yes, she said quietly. Max stared at her for a moment, then nodded. All right, Mom. Don't worry, I'll handle it, Max said. Are you still planning to see Jimmy? She asked. Yeah, Max said. Don't worry, I'll get him under control. Thank you, Max, she said. I'll be right back, she added, standing up. After she left the room, Max pulled out his phone and made a call. Jake, Foreman here. I have a job for you. Yes, him. Are you still watching him? Okay, listen. Wait until he's out of his car and make it look like an accident. Do you understand? I'll be back tomorrow, then we'll deal with his kid. See you. Bye, he said, ending the call as Mary came back into the room. I closed the video, shocked by what I just heard. It seemed like Max had ordered a hit on my father under Mary's instructions. Would they do the same to me? And how much did Rebecca know? My ringing phone snapped me back to reality. Foreman, I said as I answered the call. Jimmy, it's Jason Miller. How are you? The man on the other end asked. Mr. Miller, thank you for calling. I said, I've been better. What can I do for you? First, call me Jason, he said. Second, I heard about your father and I'm sorry for your loss. I thought very highly of him. Thank you, I said. I was wondering if you have time this afternoon to meet. I'd like to talk about your father's will. Jason said, Sure, I said. What time? How about 3 p.m., Jason suggested. I'll be there, I said. We ended the call and I wondered how much Jason knew. I found out when we met at his office. Please have a seat, Jason said when I arrived. He pulled out a thick folder and handed me a document. This is your father's last will. He changed it just before the accident. Did he ever talk to you about it? No, he didn't, I said. Well, you have a copy of what I filed with the probate court this morning, he said. Everything goes to you. We'll go over it together. Everything? Didn't he leave anything for his wife or Max? I asked, surprised. No, Jason said. He removed them from the will completely. The house and the business are now in a trust under your name. His entire estate, which is quite large, is yours. What happens next? I asked. Now we wait for the probate court, he explained. Given the size of the estate, it could take 8 to 12 months, and your mother or Max might contest it. We spent the next hour going over the paperwork, and I signed several forms. My hand is cramping, I said, after signing a stack of documents. Jason laughed. Tell me, Jason. When did my father decide to change his will? I asked. He asked me to start the process just before Thanksgiving last year. Jason said he had some concerns, had them for quite a while. What kind of concerns? I asked. He was suspicious of Max and your mother. Sorry, Mary. Jason said he was especially worried about you. Did he ever give you details? I asked. He wasn't very specific, but I had an idea. Your father and I were friends for a long time, he said. I knew about Mary and Blumenthal from college. Around the middle of last year, your father became very worried about what your half-brother was up to and Mary's role in it. That's when he set up the surveillance system in his house. He gave me the IP address of the cloud server where the videos were sent and the admin password. He told me to pass it on to the authorities if anything happened to him. After I learned of the accident, I logged into the system and saw Max and Mary talking. I gave that information to Detective Simmons, he said. I'm glad you did, I said. I spoke to Detective Simmons earlier today. I'm meeting Max later tonight. Be very careful, son, Jason warned. I will, I said. We said our goodbyes, and I left. My phone rang when I got to my car. Seeing it was Angela, I answered. Hello, I said. Jimmy, it's Angela. Got some good news for you, she said. What's that? I asked. I just got the report from the DNA lab. You're a father. Twice over, she said. Congratulations. I couldn't help but smile. It was the best news I'd gotten since the weekend. Thank you, I said. Are you still meeting with Max this evening? She asked. Yes, I am, I told her. I've got just enough time to clean up and change before I meet him. All right, she said. I'll see you then. I'll be with Detective Gibbons. Another detective will also be there, so I'll be in good company. We said our goodbyes, and I went back to the hotel. I got to Luigi's about 15 minutes before Max. They seated me in a booth in the back corner, just as I asked when I made the reservation. I saw Sam, Detective Simmons, and Angela sitting at a table not too far away. They saw me at the same time, but pretended not to know me as we had planned. I pressed the button on the pen as Sam showed me and put it in my pocket. I was looking at the menu when I saw Max and two big men come into the restaurant. The men sat at a table close by and watched me closely. I felt a bit uncomfortable. Max came to my table and offered his hand, which I did not take. He understood and sat down. "Hello, Jimmy," he said with a sneer. "Max," I replied. "What's with the goons?" I asked after a few seconds. "They're just here to make sure nothing goes wrong," he said. "So have you made up your mind?" he asked while looking over the menu. "I was looking at the shrimp scampi," I said. "Good choice," he responded. "I think I'll have the same." We gave our orders to the waitress and took a sip of water. "So, Max, this is your meeting," I said. "Let's hear what you have to say." "Straight to the point, eh, Jimmy?" Max asked. "All right, if that's how you want it. First, I want to say I'm sorry about your father. I know you two were close." "Thank you," I said. "Anyway, you were right about everything. I'm involved with your wife. In fact, I've been seeing her since before you got married. Remember the Christmas party when you said she was out of your league?" "Yes, I remember," I said. "I asked if you'd ever talked to her or asked her out. You said no because you thought she wouldn't be interested. Well, I made my move in more ways than one. You see, Jimmy, I did talk to her, and I did ask her out. We met up. Then she fell in love with you and got married. But we never stopped seeing each other. We met whenever we could, mostly while you and your father were busy with your business. Rebecca loved you and didn't want to hurt you, so we were very careful. Mom knew about it and she approved. We stopped for a while when she got pregnant. When little James was born, Mom had a DNA test done. Told me James was definitely my son. A couple of years later, she got pregnant again with Elizabeth. Same thing. Did you ever see these test results for yourself? I asked. No need, Max said. Mom said they proved I was the father and I could see it in the kids' eyes. They're mine, all right? So you have your children, I said. Why continue the affair? Well, that's easy, Max said. Truth is, I enjoy being with Rebecca. She's the best I've ever been with. I'm sure you know that, and there's also another benefit. What's that? I asked, gritting my teeth to stop myself from punching him in the face. Just then, the waitress brought our food and put the plates in front of us. The service here is quite good, Max said. Yes, I agreed. After the waitress left, I continued. So what's this other benefit you mentioned? Making you the fool, he said with a sneer. That's half the fun of it. You have no idea how many times I've been with your wife in your bed. We've even talked about having you join us just to watch, of course. No, you just take what isn't yours, I said. Why not find your own woman? That's easy, he said. Some men are born to lead. Like me, others are born to follow. Like you, which brings me to the reason for this meeting. What's that? I asked. To lay down the ground rules, he said. With your father gone, it's just you against the three of us, Rebecca, Mom, and me. Your father won't be there to protect you anymore. I am the head of this family now. So from now on, you answer to me. I will have access to Rebecca whenever I choose. You will sleep in a guest bedroom, and you will provide for the children Rebecca and I have. You will feed them, clothe them, take care of them, pay for their education and medical bills. All the things a father normally provides, but they will be my children. You will do as we say without question, no matter how much you dislike it. Moreover, you will not file for divorce, nor will you seek someone new outside your marriage. If you step out of line, we will take action. Rebecca has been looking into ways to ensure this. Now that's something I'd love to see, he said, laughing. I'm glad you're amused, I said. And what if I decide not to go along with this plan of yours? That's where it gets interesting, Jimmy, old boy, he said. You've already seen my friends. As you might guess, they aren't very smart, but they have a lot of muscle, big muscles, and they love to fight. That sounds like a threat, I said. Just pointing it out, Jimmy, Max replied. They're also good at dealing with little problems like your father. I looked at him shocked. I hoped Detective Simmons heard his sneaky confession. I decided to push him more. "So you had my father killed?" I asked. "Let's just say I made sure certain things happened. I'm good at that." He pulled a USB drive from his pocket. "These little things can hold a lot. Do you know what happens to people like child abusers in prison, Jimmy? It's not pretty. I don't need to have you killed, Jimmy, although I could. I can ruin your life with what's on this device," he sneered. "So let me get this straight," I said. "You, Rebecca, and your mother want to make me your slave. You expect me to raise your kids as mine, support them without any help from you. You want to control my life and make me live in a marriage with no love, turning me into your servant. And if I don't follow your rules, you'll either have me killed or frame me for crimes I didn't commit. Do I have it right?" "Why, Jimmy, you're smarter than Mother said you were." Max said, "I think you've got the idea." "And when does this start?" I asked. "It can start any time, tonight, in fact. We can go to your house and celebrate your new life," Max said. "I don't think so, Mr. Foreman," Detective Simmons said as he, Sam, Angela, and 2 uniformed officers came to our table. Max looked shocked. His 2 muscle men tried to get up, but 4 more officers stopped them. "What's going on?" Max demanded. "Stand up, Mr. Foreman, turn around and put your hands behind your head," Detective Simmons said. "You're under arrest for attempted extortion, conspiracy, fraud, and the murder of Mr. James Foreman. I'm sure there will be more charges." Simmons nodded at the other officers. "Book him," he said. "Wait," Angela said, stepping forward. She held a manila envelope and put it in Max's coat pocket. "Mr. Maxwell Foreman, you've been served," she said, smiling. "Take him away," Simmons said. "Along with his friends," he added, nodding to the 2 muscle men. The officers handcuffed Max and read him his rights. "By the way, Max," I said. He turned to look at me, his face red. "The kids are mine. Both of them. Your mother lied about the tests she took, and I have DNA proof that shows I'm their dad. You might want to check your swimmers." "You son of a bitch," Max growled. "I'll get out of jail, and when I do, I'll kill you. That sounds like a threat." "I suppose we can add another charge," Sam said. "Do you want him charged, Mr. Foreman?" "Yes," I said. "Take him away," Simmons said. They led Max and his muscle men out of the restaurant, hands cuffed behind their backs. "Thank you, Detective," I said, handing him the pen. He took it and shook my hand. "No, thank you, Mr. Foreman," he said. "I know that wasn't easy for you." "What will happen to him?" I asked. "If the DA gets his way, Max will end up on death row," Simmons said. "He's been wanting to catch Blumenthal for a while. By the way, you might want to take your meal to go. Officers will be picking up your wife soon." "Good luck, Mr. Foreman. We'll be in touch." We shook hands and the detectives left. "How are you feeling, Jimmy?" Angela asked after they left. "Like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders," I said. I saw the waitress and asked her to put my food in a carry-out container. "I guess I'd better get home to the kids." "That would be a good idea," Angela said. "I'll have Rebecca served at the jail. Let me know if you need anything." "Thank you for everything," I said. "I'll be in touch." With that, Angela left. I paid for the meals, grabbed my food, and left. I got home just as Rebecca was being led out of the house in handcuffs by 2 police officers. She didn't look happy. "What have you done?" she cried. "I'm fixing some wrongs, Rebecca," I said. "By the way, I filed for divorce. You'll get served soon, and the kids are mine, not Max's. Goodbye, Rebecca." The officers put her in the back of a police car and drove away. I walked into the house and found myself hugged by 2 upset children. I held them until they settled down, which took a while. "Where are they taking Mommy?" James asked. "She's going to be away for a while, son," I said. "Why?" Elizabeth asked. "She did something very bad, sweetheart," I said. I held them a bit longer and talked to them, hoping they would understand that actions have consequences. When they calmed down, I got them ready for bed and tucked them in. I knew this was just the start of a very long road for all 3 of us. As promised, Angela served Rebecca with divorce papers in jail. I was there with the process server when it happened. She didn't look good at all. The DA had filed many charges against her, and she could face decades in prison. "Why, Rebecca?" I asked. "I thought we were in love." "I'm sorry, Jimmy," she said. "I did love you, but Max and his mother were very convincing. I never wanted to hurt you." She said I thought it was a lie. And all this talk about making me your servant and fool. "Did you really think I would just sit there and take it?" I asked. That was mostly Max's idea. She explained. But you went along with it, I said. Max told me you were looking into ways to control me. Again, it was mostly him, she insisted. His mother pushed it too. She said she thought about doing the same to your dad. But you knew what he was up to, didn't you? I asked. Rebecca looked down and nodded. Yes. By the way, the DNA test came back. I'm the kid's real father, I informed her. Mary lied about that too. So much for his better genes. I stood up and looked at her. She seemed very sad, but I didn't care. Sign the papers and end this fake marriage. I'll let the kids visit you sometimes. With that, I left. I could hear her crying, but I didn't care. She made her own choices. Max went on trial for even more crimes than I knew about. Both state and federal agencies were interested in his shady dealings. In the end, he lost his law license and got the death sentence. He's now on death row waiting for his appeals. Mary also went to prison for life for killing Dad. Rebecca got the same sentence for helping her. They can try for parole after 15 years. The whole thing turned into a big media circus when people found out who Max's parents were. Blumenthal denied any ties to Max, but the rumors made it hard for him to stay in his job. He eventually quit, but still got hounded by the press. Unfortunately, little James and Elizabeth suffered the most. They lost their grandparents, their Uncle Max, who they loved, and their mother, all in a short time. Angela and Julie set up counseling for them, and for me, too. Being a single dad with a busy job is really tough, I discovered quickly. I hired a nanny to help with the kids while I worked, but she wasn't a real mother for them. I tried dating, but couldn't trust anyone like I did with Rebecca. Maybe one day I'll find a woman I can love and trust, but I'm not rushing it. Right now, I'm just happy to be alive and to have my kids. I'll keep figuring things out as I go. Take a breath before moving on to the second story. Tell me, what do you think about Mike's decision to install surveillance cameras in his home? Feel free to share your opinion and comment R. Story 2. After the reunion, I read the letter on the kitchen table left by my almost ex-wife Julia for the 5th time and shook my head. She left this for me after that awful reunion where she embarrassed me with that guy, Jules Connor. After the reunion, I didn't see her much for a few reasons. First, she kept seeing Connor, even after I told her not to. Second, we both had busy jobs, but mainly she's been in the hospital for over a week. She collapsed at work the day after the reunion. The doctors tried everything but couldn't figure out what was wrong. I had seen these symptoms before and gave them my thoughts, but they ignored me. I only work as a biomedical researcher after all. They kept running tests, not knowing what was happening. By the time they realized I was right, it was too late. Julia's body was shutting down and all they could do was keep her comfortable. On one hand, I hated what was happening to her. On the other hand, I was glad she wasn't home. At least I didn't have to smell the scent of her betrayal. I picked up her letter one more time. I needed to reply to her soon. She liked to write long, detailed letters to me, which I always enjoyed. Her neat, pretty handwriting was always a joy to read, and her letters always excited me. But this letter, not so much. She misunderstood so many things that night. That didn't surprise me, considering how it all went down. I poured another cup of coffee, sat down with pen and paper, and began writing. Julia, I got your letter and read it. I must say I'm very disappointed in you for many reasons. I was proud to call you my wife. You were beautiful with an amazing body. Yes, you were a bit wild that night, but I was fine with it. I loved looking at you, admiring your curves, and I liked it when others knew you were mine. Best of all, I was the man who would take you home, undress you, and be with you. I'll never forget what we had for 5 wonderful years, 2 of those as husband and wife. During that time, you were loving, supportive, and faithful. You were my reason for living. I felt I had a right to be proud, a wonderful wife, a good home, a great job, and respect for my peers. I had it all, and I wanted to show it off a bit. You are right that Jules Connor was the biggest bully I ever knew, and that he tormented me since the 4th grade. That's why I started learning martial arts in my last year of high school. I kept doing it even when I was a medic in the Army. Actually, I could have easily beaten Jules, but he had a few friends with him, some of whom were local police officers who made sure I didn't. If he had tried to hit me, things might have turned out differently, and we wouldn't be in this mess. I saw how you reacted to his teasing and how you flirted back. I also noticed how your face turned red when he made moves on you. Watching the 2 of you dance, I knew something was wrong. Before you left with him, I tried to talk you out of it. You said in your letter that I never said anything, but that's not true, and you know it. Maybe you chose to ignore me. I warned you that you would regret leaving with him for the rest of your life. You sneered at me and said it was your body, and you would do what you wanted. Yes, you chose him over me that night, and to quote an old movie, you chose poorly. I think you realize that now. I wondered what made you act like you did that night. I'd never seen you behave like that before. Maybe Jules came up with some kind of control ray to use on you. Before we left, I took a couple of the glasses you drank from. If you remember, those were drinks Jules and his friends brought to you. I had the glasses tested and found out they were full of various drugs, ecstasy, and other stuff. That's right. Jules and his friends drugged you that night. I think he did it again the next time you met. But the real damage was done the first time he hurt you. Let me explain. Jules and I were in the same Army unit after high school. He tried to bully me there too and took a swing at me once, which he regretted. After I hit his head on the sidewalk a couple of times, he mostly left me alone, but we never got along. Our unit went on a mission to help an island nation after a hurricane. As a medic, I was busy treating the injured while Jules' unit delivered supplies around the island. One day, Jules came to the clinic complaining about pain when he peed. It was clear he had a sexually transmitted disease. I ran tests and gave him the usual treatment, which included a warning to avoid intimate contact. The tests came back positive, but the doctor and I were shocked. The disease was different from anything we had seen before. It looked like regular gonorrhea, but was more aggressive and resistant to usual treatments. Jules suffered many symptoms like headaches, fever, groin pain, discharge, and joint pain. His condition was similar to some of your symptoms. It wasn't pleasant. He nearly died a few times. I stayed with him and did my best to help. I even saved his life. We tried everything to treat the symptoms. Eventually, the symptoms went away, but tests showed the bacteria was still in him. It just went dormant. The doctor wrote complex instructions, and Jules was sent back to the States to be monitored. Before he left, Jules told me he would get back at me for ruining his military career. In short, he blamed me for his bad choices. I believe what he did to you was part of that threat. I never heard from Jules after that. I finished my military service, went to college where I met you, and the rest, as they say, is history. I was shocked when I saw him at the reunion. I was even more shocked by how you reacted to him. I was heartbroken when he treated you so badly and I couldn't do anything. His friends, some of whom were armed, made sure of that. There was a reason I didn't say or do anything while he acted that way with you. One of his friends had a gun pressed against my side, hidden from everyone's view. You didn't know that at the time, did you? I doubt you would have cared if you did. When you came back, I couldn't help but see what he had done. It was clear on you. You probably didn't realize it that night, but the first time he hurt you, he changed everything. Your body just didn't know it yet. You said you loved me, but your actions that night showed otherwise. Did you notice that I never touched you after that? Did you see that I always wore gloves when you were around? Did you wonder about that? Do you remember I urged you to see a doctor right after? Do you remember I told you to get tested when you started feeling sick? Do you remember how you dismissed it, saying it was just a minor infection that would pass? But it didn't pass, did it? In fact, your symptoms got worse every day. Instead of getting tested like I suggested, you went to see Jules because, as you said, I wouldn't attend to your needs. I explained why I wouldn't get close to your sick body, but you didn't care and laughed at me. I doubt you're laughing now, though, are you? Remember when you asked if I would file for divorce? I told you I wouldn't. You laughed and said it was because I was weak and a pushover like Jules said. The truth is, I knew you wouldn't live long enough for any divorce to happen, and I was right, wasn't I? So tell me, dear wife, was being with Jules worth all this pain? I bet you wish you had listened to me at the reunion. If you had, we might be starting a family by now, but that's not happening, is it? As for Jules, he's in jail now with his friends. I'm sure he never told you he had a deadly disease when he was with you. It's against the law here. Don't worry, he'll face even worse charges soon. I hope your time with Jules was worth it. I'm sure you agree it was the most costly mistake of your short life. Don't worry about me. There are quite a few nice women who've already shown interest in a soon-to-be widower. I've been preparing, and I think I can manage playing the grieving spouse. Goodbye, and enjoy what's left of your life. Your soon-to-be widowed husband, Michael P.S. I've taken care of everything after your passing, so there's no need to worry. After your autopsy, your body will be donated to science. They'll study the effects of the disease Jules gave you. Once they're done, your remains will be cremated and given to your parents if they want them. I just felt you should know. And yes, your parents know the whole story. They agree this is for the best, though they're not happy about it. Also, I've given your belongings away. Your parents wanted some pictures, so I gave them all away. I'm giving the rest to charity since I plan to remodel the house once you're gone. I read the letter once more. Satisfied, I folded it and put it into an envelope, writing her name on the front. I reheated my coffee and stepped outside for a cigarette. A vice I had picked up again after my time in the army. Yes, it's a bad habit, but recent events made me rethink things. Afterward, I locked the house, got in my car, and left. When I got to my destination, I walked inside and went to Julius's room, where I put on a face mask, gloves, and a gown. She was in bed connected to tubes and wires. I looked at the nurse. "How is she?" I asked. The nurse shook her head. I understood. "How much longer?" "Not much. Hours, maybe a couple of days at most," she said sadly. "Her body is shutting down." "When she wakes up, could you give her this?" I asked, handing the nurse the envelope. She took it, probably thinking it was a love letter. "Of course," she said. "I'll make sure she gets it. You're welcome to stay as long as you wish." "Thank you," I said. She gathered her notes and went to the door. "Maybe stay with her. At least for a few minutes," she suggested. "I'll be just around the corner if you need anything." She left before I could reply. I had planned to leave after giving the letter, but I realized I needed closure. I looked back at Julia and saw her eyes open. "Michael," she said weakly. "Please." I held up my hand to quiet her and gave her the letter. She took it with her thin hand and opened the envelope. I was struck by how much weight she had lost in such a short time. She pulled out the letter and read it, tears streaming down her face. Her hands shook as she read, my words hitting her hard. Good. Her betrayal at my reunion had brought out the worst in me. Usually, I would have comforted her, not this time. I stayed 6 feet away from her bed. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Please forgive me, Michael. I'm begging you." I thought for a moment, then shook my head. "I can't, Julia. I said the heartless way you did what you did is too much. I warned you, but you didn't listen. Now you're paying the price. And soon Jules will also pay for what he did." "Don't you love me?" she cried. "Not anymore," I said, making her sob. "I did once, but I don't know who you are anymore. Jules drugged you, yes, but you should have listened to me. And that last letter you left? Well, it said a lot to me. Want forgiveness? Look in the dictionary. Or ask God, the one you used to believe in. You won't get any from me." "Don't you have any feelings for me at all?" she asked through her sobs. "Yes," I said. "Mostly I feel disgusted. Why are you being so mean?" "I'm dying here," she said. "Seriously?" I replied. I saw a small mirror on the counter. I grabbed it and put it in front of her face. "Look closely. That's why you broke me that day at the reunion. You may as well have shot me." And that last letter was the final straw. "This is on you, Julia. I feel sad that you're dying, but you made your choice. Now you have to live with it." I placed the mirror back on the counter and walked to the door. I glanced back, knowing this would be the last time I'd see her alive. She was shaking and crying in her bed. "Goodbye, Julia," I said before leaving. As I walked down the hallway, a nurse glared at me. I didn't care. I got in my car and drove home. The phone rang at 3:30 the next morning. It woke me up. I saw it was the hospice. I knew what it meant. But I answered anyway. "Mr. Williams, this is Life Care Hospice." A woman said, "I'm calling to let you know that your wife passed away a few minutes ago." "Thank you for telling me," I said. "It says here she's to have an autopsy and her body is being donated to science. Is that right?" Her tone showed she didn't like it. "Too bad." "Yes, that's right," I replied. "Okay," she said. "We'll handle the transport. You can come by any time to get her things." "Thank you," I said. "I also see that Detective Samuels of the Metropolitan Police Department needs to be notified of her death," she added. "That's correct," I said. "Very well, sir," she said. "I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Williams." "I appreciate that," I said, and we ended the call. I then called her parents to inform them. They thanked me for letting them know. Since her body was for science, there would be no funeral. Her parents could plan a memorial service if they wanted, but I had no interest or money to spend on it. I wouldn't attend it either. She was out of my life for good. At least I could look in the mirror and say I kept my promises even if she didn't. The next day I went to work. My boss, a kind and sharp woman, insisted I take grief leave and see a counselor for my anger and sorrow. She handed me a card with a counselor's name and said I shouldn't come back until I made an appointment. I did what people do after a loved one dies. Took the death certificate to Julia's company and managed things. Everyone said sorry for my loss, and I thanked them. As Julia's beneficiary, I got her 401k, which was about $25,000, and her life insurance, which paid out 2.5 times her yearly salary. I calculated that it would be just over $110,000, enough to pay her hospital bills and fund a summer cruise to the Caribbean. The autopsy confirmed what I already knew. Julius Connor was charged with planned murder. I testified at his trial, which was quick. Connor admitted he didn't tell Julia about his STD and knew what could happen. The jury soon found him guilty. 2 weeks later, the judge sentenced Jules to death by lethal injection. His friends said they didn't know about his STD, but were found guilty of minor charges and got 5 years in state prison. After the trial, I went to a sports bar to celebrate. While drinking a beer, I heard a familiar voice say my name. I turned and saw her. Danielle Jenkins. We went to college together and dated a few times before I met Julia. She was as pretty as I remembered. I invited her to join me and we talked about old times. She told me she married another classmate, Ronald Freeze, and divorced him a year later when she caught him cheating. We spent the evening comforting each other and made plans to go out that weekend. I don't know if anything will come of this, but after what Julia put me through, I'm willing to try. Maybe Danielle will join me on that cruise next summer. Fade to Black Hate audience. If you like this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.